Hello folks. And welcome to Mr. Creepy Skeleton Stories. Are you one of those people who loves to browse at the middle of the night? What if something creepy happens? Well, that is what my stories are all about for today, so sit back, enjoy and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go. Story 1. As the clock struck midnight, I found myself alone in the darkness, browsing the depths of the internet. The glow from my laptop screen illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Little did I know that this late-night browsing session would turn into a horrific experience beyond my imagination. I was engrossed in a thread on a paranormal forum, reading spine-chilling stories about haunted houses and supernatural encounters. The night was silent, except for the occasional creaks and whispers that seemed to emanate from the corners of the room. But suddenly, as I scrolled through the forum, a pop-up appeared on my screen. It was a message from an unknown user, simply saying, "I see you." My heart skipped a beat as I looked around the room, feeling a sense of unease. I dismissed it as a prank and continued scrolling. However, the feeling of being watched persisted, intensifying with each passing moment. Unsettled, I decided to shut down my laptop and call it a night. But as I reached for the power button, the screen flickered, and a new message appeared: "You can't escape." Fear gripped me like a vice, as I tried desperately to close the window, but it seemed to be frozen. Panic set in as I realized that my every move was being monitored. The room grew colder, and a bone-chilling breeze swept through the air. With trembling hands and a racing heart, I grabbed my phone to call for help, only to find that there was no signal. I was trapped in a nightmare, with no way to reach the outside world. The shadows in the room seemed to grow darker, merging into a menacing entity that loomed over me. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the silence, sending shivers down my spine. It whispered my name, each syllable dripping with malevolence. I could hear the sound of something approaching, slow and deliberate. Terror consumed me as I backed into a corner, praying for this nightmare to end. But just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, a blinding flash of light filled the room, forcing me to shield my eyes. When I finally opened them, I found myself standing in an empty room, my laptop lying on the floor, its screen shattered. Confusion engulfed me as I tried to comprehend what had just happened. Was it all just a hallucination? But as I took a step forward, a figure appeared in the corner of the room. It was a young girl, dressed in tattered clothes, her eyes filled with anguish and pain. She reached out to me, her trembling hand revealing a deep, dark secret. With a sudden realization, the plot twist unfolded before me. The girl was not the source of horror, she was a victim, trapped in this realm between the living and the dead. It was the vengeful spirit that had haunted her, tormenting anyone who dared to enter its domain. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to help the girl find peace and release her from this malevolent presence. Together, we embarked on a journey to uncover the truth behind her haunting, facing terrifying challenges and uncovering a dark secret that would leave us both forever changed. As the dawn broke, we succeeded in banishing the vengeful spirit and setting the girl's spirit free. She smiled at me, her eyes filled with gratitude, before disappearing into the light. Story 2. I'm Alex, an average 25-year-old male. I had just finished a long day at work and was ready to relax at home with my cozy blanket and unwind. I was scrolling through my phone, mindlessly flipping through the internet with one eye open as I started to drift off. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise that made me jump out of my seat. I rubbed my eyes and looked around, certain that I heard the noise come from my room. I peered around, listening carefully for any other sounds that I might have missed. The room was empty and there was no sign that anyone had broken in. I had a feeling that this experience was far from over, however, and my heart started to beat rapidly with fear. I took a deep breath and continued to browse the internet, determined not to let my fears get the best of me. Then I saw it. An article on my news feed titled, "The Mystery of the Ghost Town." Instantly, I was intrigued. I clicked on it and started to read about this town. As I read, my eyes widened with shock. The article described how the town was once thriving with life until one night when all of its residents mysteriously disappeared. Suddenly, the noise I heard earlier came from my bedroom again. I whirled around, feeling a chill run up my spine. I could have sworn I heard a faint whisper, like someone was calling my name. I scrambled to my feet and ran out of the room. I felt my heart racing with fear as I exited my apartment and decided to take off into the city streets. As I ran, I noticed the eerie silence that had settled around me. I didn't see a single soul. After several minutes, I stopped to catch my breath, and that's when I noticed it. A faint, repeating hum that seemed to get louder and louder as I stood there. I started to run again, not wanting to find out the source of the noise. As I continued, I spotted a faint light that seemed to hover in the distance. I stopped running and slowly crept closer to the light. Tears filled my eyes as the eerie hum grew closer. I realized the light was coming from an old abandoned church in the middle of the ghost town. As I approached, I could see two figures standing in the light. They beckoned for me to join them, and so I walked towards them, my legs trembling with fear. When I was close enough, I recognized one of the figures as a former resident of the ghost town. He began to tell me his story of the night when all the residents of the town disappeared, and the haunting sounds that he heard echoing through the night. He warned me that I should leave immediately before the same fate that befell the town would happen to me. I ran back home and have not dared to look at the article since. That night has made me wary of late-night browsing on my phone, and the experience has left me with a fear for the unknown. Story 3. It was late at night and I was alone in my room, browsing the web on my phone. I had been trying to find something interesting to watch and my eyes were getting heavy with exhaustion. I was scrolling through the pages with my finger, drowsily clicking on one thing then the next as my eyes grew heavier and heavier. Then, from the corner of my eyes I saw something strange, something that made my blood run cold. It was a figure, tall and thin and wearing all black, standing in the corner of my bedroom, almost like it was watching me. I quickly jumped up and scooted back, my heart pounding in my chest. Nothing moved, and after a few seconds I had the nerve to look back. But the figure was gone. I was so freaked out that I decided to go to bed without further exploring the web, but I couldn't help glancing over my shoulder every so often. I took a deep breath and decided to fall asleep. The next day, I still felt a bit of unease from the night before and had trouble getting through my day. I had to push the figure to the back of my mind and just try to focus on the day ahead. All I could do was just hope that my imagination had been working overtime. Throughout the day, I couldn't help but feel like someone, or something, was watching me. Every time I looked out the window I swore I saw a figure in black, standing there, almost like it was observing my every move. I was so shaken up I almost didn't want to look too closely. For the rest of the day I stayed indoors like clockwork, eating meals in quick movements and going to bed as soon as I could. Still, I couldn't help feeling like every glance in the mirror or out the window was being observed. I was so on edge I decided not to get on my phone, but it did nothing to cause the unease I was feeling. Finally it was nighttime and I decided to just buckle down till morning. I knew I had nothing to fear and that this was all in my head. But when I picked up my phone to make sure all was in order and saw a mysterious figure in the corner of my bedroom, my stomach dropped. This figure was identical to the one I had seen the night before. I quickly stood up and with all my courage I stepped closer to the figure. It was a man, tall and thin with a long, black coat and a wide-brimmed hat on his head. With his hands in his pockets he just seemed to stare off into space with no emotion. He reminded me of a ghost from a horror movie, just standing there and looming in the corner. I stepped closer and reached out, barely brushing his coat. The man turned his head and I thought I saw deep into his eyes. I knew at that moment that the mysterious figure I saw the night before was just a figment of my imagination, but that somehow, this man in my room was real. He was a real presence in my life now, and I knew there was nothing I could do about it. For a few more moments we just stared at each other before I decided to muster up my courage and ask the man what he wanted. He seemed to ponder for a few moments and then finally spoke in a soft, silky voice. "I'm here to tell you that the dark corners of the internet are not so safe. I've seen what lies in wait within those corners, and it isn't pretty. There are creatures in there that prey on the innocent and the unsuspecting who dare to venture in. So beware, my friend, and be careful where your curiosity takes you." And without another word he faded away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. From that night onwards I swore to never again go looking into the darkest corners of the internet without being sure of my safety.